Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to our VR show where we talk about the news, and I don't even think I'm in the center here. Let me see if I can get in the center. I hope you're all doing well. We're hoping that a couple other guys will drop in, but it looks like they're running a little late, so we can get started by covering the news. Again, this is our virtual reality show in which we talk about everything that's happened this week. So let's go ahead and get started here. And again, I hope the guys will join us, but you never know what happens. Family comes first, right? So with that said, it is, let's see, May 15th, and we're in the waiting game, right? It's the waiting game for the new headsets. We got the Quest, we got the Rift S, we got the HPV Reverb, and we got the um, Valve Index. And there's been a lot going on with that, and I see it looks like uh, Aga just joined, so when he's ready, he'll hop on in here. Um, but a lot of things are happening. So, like we talked about last week, we got the HTC gaining and Windows Mixed Reality are gaining in the Steam survey on Oculus Rift because you can't buy a Rift right now. You can only pre-order them, right? And in addition to that, a lot of retailers accidentally, or I should say, some retailers have accidentally shipped Quest units early. So that's so you can't use them if you get them early. Now, there's been a lot about the Quest going back and forth because um, several retailers are taking pre-orders but not giving dates. For instance, I pre-ordered mine with Amazon. I still don't have a date. And some people have said over on Reddit that they're getting dates that are way out there. They're getting dates that are well after launch. And if I get a date like that, I'll just cancel it. I'll just drive down to Walmart on release day and pick one up or pre-order it with somebody else. The only reason I chose Amazon for my Quest was the fact that I could get it the day after launch versus 2 days after launch with Walmart. We don't have a Best Buy, sadly, in our town anymore. It closed up shop. So, not only that, but then with the Reverb, right? They're already out of stock. So the pre-order was on the 6th, and now they're already out of stock. And some people have gotten them, and they said they had issues with them. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, I don't want to say too many bad things about the Reverb because there's a lot of great press out there on it as well. A lot of great press. But again, they released it, and now all the retailers are showing out of stock, and you can't really order one right now. So, and with that, there's also a lot of confusion. People are buying the Rift S and the Index, right? And they don't have a DisplayPort jack in their computer. So a lot of laptops only come with HDMI. Matter of fact, I had to check my laptop to make sure I had DisplayPort because I never used DisplayPort for anything. So yeah, I do have a mini DisplayPort, so that's great. If I get a Rift S or an Index, I could use it on my laptop. But a lot of people weren't aware of that. So everybody's checking out their computers to find out what's going on with that. So that's kind of where we are. We're in this waiting game as everybody's placing their pre-orders, making the bets. Do I want the best resolution? Then I get the Reverb. Do I want the best tracking? Then I get the Index. Do I want the something affordable with inside-out tracking? Well, then maybe you get the Rift S if you don't already have a Rift. That's a great way to get into the Rift. You know, what am I trying to say? I get access to all the Rift exclusives and get into that ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, some people like me, we're just getting the Quest because we want to have freedom from wires. And alternatively, none of the PC HMDs feel like a real upgrade from like the Rift and the Windows Mixed Reality. So we'll see. I did see one of the YouTubers I follow, and I forget his name. I apologize. But I think it was MRTV, where he was doing through the lens pictures, and he was showing Elite Dangerous looked a lot better on the Rift S than it did on the original Rift or Vive. So that's cool. But again, the specs aren't that much better. So we'll see. We'll just have to see. So that's where we are today. We're waiting for all the new headsets to come out. There are some people out there doing some great comparisons. Would love to see the Odyssey added to these comparisons along with the Reverb and the Index when it finally comes out and starts shipping. And with that, that's kind of where we are today. I want to see if we can get Aga in. Aga, are you there? Let's see if he can hear. I can see he's muted. Are you there, kind sir? I don't have him. I can't unmute him. I think he'll have to unmute himself when he's ready. So, along with that, right, there's a lot of news coming out about these new headsets and the games that'll be supported. A lot of news, of course, because I'm pre-ordered in the Quest. I'm watching a lot of that news, which games are cross-buy and which aren't. And a lot of people have come out and said, like the people who do Beat Saber, the people who do Super Hot, the people who do Moss, they're like, it took a lot of engineering effort, a lot of our time to actually make this run on the Quest. So we're not going to make it cross-play. And I totally get that, right? Or cross-buy. And I totally get that. Having said that, um, I think I'm going to focus on cross-buy titles at first because, I got the Rift, the original Rift. I already own an Orbis. So, yeah, so that's very interesting. And I'll, again, all the links of everything we talk about will be in the show notes when the show is done and published. In addition to that, some other changes. Some of the top VR games out there have had some updates. For instance, Beat Saber is getting ready to leave early access on the 21st of May on the PC. And at that time, it's going to be getting a level editor. And, just to kind of understand how big a game Beat Saber is, it has been the biggest PSVR download for 6 months running. So for 6 months, Beat Saber's been number one on PSVR. So I mean that is just it's a huge title. I was watching again. One of the YouTubers I follow was doing a through the lens on Beat Saber with the Quest, and it looked spectacular. It really did. It looked great. I mean, I couldn't see any, even with the through the lens, I couldn't see any screen door effect. And usually, the cameras would bring that out a little bit more. But in any case, very interesting stuff. Also, a lot of these games are getting new content, like Moss is getting new content. So it'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see. And that new content's going to be coming out on the Oculus Quest first. So some of those people who bought it on the other platforms may have some sour grapes there because they've owned it for a long time, but the new people get the new content first. Very interesting. Couple that with the fact that games like Rec Room aren't going to have everything, day one. So like Rec Royale and Rec Room, not going to be on the Quest day one. They say it's really challenging because the levels are so huge. They just can't. They just can't get into the Quest yet. So they will have paintball, and they will have the rec center. But besides that, I didn't see any of the quests listed out that would be available. The quest, the Robotron, and some of those quests are just a blast. And hopefully they'll get those over there. But again, that's a free game. It's one of the best VR games out there, and it's free. So I don't know how they're going to. I don't know how they're funding all that development. So in any case, good stuff. Lots of good stuff here. So with that, the next news stories were brought to us by Aga and DB, who's not here. And let's see. I don't know if you can hear me. Agaskacles, are you there? You can hear me. Can you unmute yourself? What is wrong with Hangouts? So he's going to try to reconnect. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and skip into what we did tonight. Now, tonight I used my Rift, my Oculus Rift. Let me change one of these settings over here. This is live TV, so you know that that you're bound to have little things go wrong here and there. Especially it's so late, right? It's almost time to bed, get ready to go to work tomorrow. But in any case, tonight I played with Commander Ocelot and Commander Macebite. We played Star Trek Bridge Crew. I was on the Rift. Hey, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, all right, good.
Great. Sorry.
How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I just went through my news stories about the part one there, about all the we're in the in between right now.
Right.
I was getting ready to kind of pitch it over to you to get your thoughts about that, and then I noticed you had some news stories as well.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where to start. I guess I hear you, right? This is the problem with the current time in the market is we're in this weird bathtub where kind of everybody is kind of stepping up to their starting blocks in a lot of cases, or for those of us, I guess, who went um, in generation one, we're just kind of languishing, waiting for the new to arrive. Everybody's in some kind of weird point of stasis. I mean, for me, it's not a bad time because I'm using my WMR headset, which I've let sit under a desk in a case for several months. So I'm kind of like back in the batter's cage, kind of warming up, waiting for my Rift S to arrive. Um, oh, and I guess squirreling away some time to play with my Vive, which I'd almost forgotten that I had. Yeah, and the market's in kind of a weird place, as you mentioned. Rift decided that they were going to kind of let stock in the supply chain just kind of wash itself out without restocking it. And so there was a lengthy period of time, probably I would have guessed longer than maybe they had planned, where there were no Rift S's, no Rifts, no OG Rifts to be purchased, and Vive kind of crept up on them. I think the most interesting thing to me as we get ready to enter this new era is VR in Generation 1 didn't really have kind of the NPD tracking and the hyper focus on install base. We would get periodic, we think it's like this many things, but like none of the VR manufacturers were releasing numbers really on a consistent basis. I'm looking forward to the market getting mature enough that we hear that, kind of like in the console war era, like these many Rifts have been sold, these many Vives have been sold. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely I heard all your stories and listened in. Yeah, the HDMI thing is a little bit of a loop-de-loop. I found it curious. I mean, so are a lot of people? I mean, so obviously, if you have a desktop class VR class GPU, you have DisplayPort.
Sure.
Did you are they full DisplayPort to full DisplayPort connect? Is it a full DisplayPort connection on the Rift S and the Index, or is it a mini DisplayPort?
Yeah, I think the Rift S actually comes with the converter
Okay.
from full to mini. I don't know that the
Okay.
Index has the full to mini converter.
Okay, gotcha. So on the device itself, it's a mini, but
On the
one of
device,
them.
it's a full.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's weird. Why? I guess what's strange to me is why are they expecting the PC that it's connected to have a mini DisplayPort?
Yeah, so the units all come with the full DisplayPort.
Right.
So the Rift S, the Index, and I believe the HP Reverb all come with a full port.
Right.
And so, like you said, most people are going to use desktops. Most people are going
Right.
to they're going to use desktops with their new HMDs. So they're going to have a full port. I believe I've seen both places where Rift S and Reverb come with the adapter full to mini for laptop users.
Yeah, that's the part that's weird to me. Is it's weird to me that, I mean, it's nice that they would pack in the adapter, because I would think that the number of people playing VR because the only thing that would have a mini DisplayPort connector would be a laptop, and I would think that the base of people using a laptop to drive VR would be fairly small.
However, those are the two models that have inside-out tracking, so it's perfect for a laptop.
I gotcha. The other thing I guess where it makes sense is all the rage is these backpack VR computers.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so those probably only have mini DisplayPort. So yeah, it's always an interesting loop-de-loop when you, as somebody who streams a lot, I'm constantly juggling different display cables and adapters and all that kind of stuff. So it's I guess it's time for VR to have their turn with that as well.
Yeah. Do you know why they require DisplayPort? I haven't had a chance to look that up.
There's a part of me that, as a tech geek, wants to always believe that DisplayPort is better, but as much as I've pulled the thread on it, I've found no like technical specification or scientific proof that DisplayPort is better. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There may have been one like very small, like esoteric, like out on the fringe thing where DisplayPort is better in terms of signal stability or something weird like that, but it's very like it's not something that a consumer would ever like really be impacted by.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if somebody does a story about that. I noticed and I don't know which of these are DBs. I know our good friend DBQ, who was hoping to join us tonight, had put some stories in here. But under the other VR news series section in our show notes, are any of those stories yours? Should we cover
Yeah,
any of those?
yeah. So the two I dropped was the first one that we found that we sourced from Upload VR. China's Netflix just released a $300 4K 3 Degree of Freedom standalone headset. I just thought this was interesting for possible conveyance from the Eastern markets into the Western markets. China's company iQIYI, I guess I'm not sure how it's called, but they are owned by Baidu. Baidu is the Chinese version of Google, so they're the big search engine in China, and they also concurrently own, I guess, the country's largest streaming service that carries television and video. And so they've just released a very low cost headset that is capable of 4K and has 3 degrees of freedom. All you really do with it is use it to watch movies in like a virtual theater. So there's not a lot, but you can look around in the headset. It does come with a controller, and it's basically similar to the Oculus Go. So it's 32 gigabytes of onboard storage, an SD card slot with expansion up to 256 gig. It has a 3,500 milliamp hour battery, which probably gives it maybe 3 to 4 hours of battery life. So I just thought it was interesting because when I had my Samsung Gear VR, I know that one of the applications that you could use with it was Netflix, which was one of the few things. And I had always dreamed that we would get to a point where you could, be in a virtual reality viewing room with a buddy, watching, like my brother, right? We love movies. We always call each other on the phone to catch up and talk about movies. It'd be cool, like to sit in a virtual space with him and watch a movie together. But it never really got to that point, obviously, because of DRM and licensing and all that stuff about public performances and all that stuff. But yeah, it was just interesting. We don't see a ton of 3 Degree of Freedom headsets. We tend to see. I think we tend to see more static viewing experiences, kind of like the mobile headsets, and then you get the full-blown 6 Degree of Freedom experience. So these middle ground VR headsets might be an interesting place in the market if they ever kind of trickle over here to the US. So
Yeah, I mean, I almost wonder if that's going to take over the low end market, like the Oculus Go. I mean, Google recently said that new Pixel 3a phone isn't going to support VR. So, what does that mean? I would always have thought, it would be just you get this phone, it has a 4K screen, stick it in a little like a Samsung Gear VR holder, and there you go. You got your VR, right? Like your Google Cardboard and whatnot. But I don't know. Maybe this is the way to go. I mean, it seems like with the Go, you're in that $200 price range. I don't know. And these guys have 4K, so
yeah, and so this headset, I guess maybe the more salient points that I didn't bring forward is that this headset has the same resolution as the HP Reverb. Carries all of its compute on board in the device, whereas obviously the Reverb is dependent upon a PC, and it's roughly half the price of a Reverb. Another interesting tidbit I didn't realize is, so this headset will have access to the Vive port.
oh,
So it will have access to tons of content. Now, again, we get into this thing that we have with the Rift S and the Quest, where this thing, I mean, while I don't know that the Quest it's been stated very clearly, I have found it as an assessment from other people, and I strongly believe that clearly the Quest is running Android. This is stated directly from the company that it is running Android. So again, I get that weird thing of, okay, so it's in the, if Vive port, it's great, but if it was coded for PC and it, you know, and it runs on Windows, I don't really know if there are concurrent code bases that allow that application to be run, where that application is also distributed as an APK that can run on Android. So a little wonkiness there, but it is interesting that it's coming out at half that price, same resolution as the Reverb. The processor, I want to say maybe this was the one that was the previous model ran the Snapdragon 821. And I guess maybe this one runs the 835. I'm not completely sure. But
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate to call a VR headset 4K if it's 2K per eye? And I don't know the answer to that.
I believe that's the convention everyone's going with, is that we state the resolution, we state the top end resolution as the defining characteristic of the headset, which is actually the sum of the horizontal resolution of the two eyes. So yeah.
But you're really only getting 2K by 2K. That's what you're seeing twice.
Yes.
You're seeing it twice.
Yeah, but
it's one image in your brain.
Right.
I just thought it was funny. Because I see people doing that too, and I thought it was funny. Now, what about this next one? Is that you put in there?
Yeah, so the other one was a story that we sourced from VentureBeat. AR/VR's $80 billion plus market could split before it consolidates, and this was a kind of a thought piece by Tim Morrell on what's the evolution that we could see in the market. Typically, with startup markets and new markets, what you expect is a couple people to get into the market, create a lot of excitement about the technology. Then you tend to see larger companies and corporations then flood the market, and many more new startups participate, and then you see revenue and margins kind of dry up because the market gets saturated, and so then there's kind of mass consolidation. This is a thought piece that proposes that before we get to the big install number that everybody's expecting to get, is that we're on a trajectory of the market where you're going to see those large numbers of more people flooding the market, rather than the mass consolidation. We're still popping up with new form factors. We're still finding new products. This $300 headset from China, I think is a key case, right, where kind of a weird synthetic model that kind of takes pieces from either spectrum of the market for specific use cases, that have more so been the domain of other headsets, is kind of an example, right, where you're going to see, you may potentially see applications for 3 degrees of freedom devices, and then of course AR creates an additional variance in that market as well. So yeah, it's like I said, it's just that thought piece. The thing that I thought was most interesting out of it was that were two things: the notion of, which I keep waiting for us to get to, and I find it very strange that the market hasn't gotten there faster, is aggregate units that are both AR and VR, available at consumer prices. And I guess this article doesn't propose it, but I guess what I would like to see is a model that I can set up and plug into a PC and play a high-end, high-fidelity 2K to 4K hardcore gaming experiences, but then unplug it and connect it over Bluetooth to my smartphone and take it with me on the go. Obviously, the optimum apogee of the market is for us to not have multiple discrete devices for those two use cases. But the thing I thought was most interesting out of this whole thing was that the projection that where the market is heading is a 30 million unit install base, which is essentially kind of sort of, well, I mean, I guess I was going to say it is the install base of the Xbox One. I think it's probably more accurate right now to say that's equivalent to the install base roughly of the Nintendo Switch. So if you think about things in those terms, the thing that's weird for me is that it's not 30 million all within the same domain space. So again, you have PC VR, you have mobile VR, you have AR, you have different gaming experiences across all of those. So it still creates, I think, a very kind of constrained notion of an install base when a development studio thinks about, hey, we're going to do a VR game. Where are we going to target? And I want to say the mobile install base. Yeah, so I guess they had the mobile install base at 20 million, which means, potentially, at least by numbers, there's bigger reward for risk to make a mobile VR game. Of course, the cost per unit sale won't be as high, but obviously in mobile, there's other ways to monetize as well.
I'm sitting here and I'm kind of like, I guess the AR VR market could split before it consolidates. And to me, I'm like, I don't think they were ever joined together. In other words, I haven't seen any apps that are both AR and VR enabled. Okay. So what I've seen, so on one side, this is what I see. On one side, you have the original Rift and the original Vive. Okay. On the other side, for AR, you have something like Pokemon Go. Okay. And I think they will, like you said, I think they will consolidate in time. Kind of like we're seeing computer and console gaming consolidate. Almost every game now releases on everything. PC rigs and Xbox and PlayStation 4. So I really feel like it's like today. I mean, putting what you do on a Magic Leap or what you do on a HoloLens or what you do on your phone. I think the type of AR is substantially different than what we have in VR. And again, Ready Player One, you have your VR headset that also has a translucent screen, so it could be AR. That's great, right? And I do believe we will eventually get there. But I think AR, kind of like mobile apps, there's going to be a lot of uses for AR, forget QR codes. You're going to be able to hold your phone up next, as you're walking down the aisles at the store, and it'll just automatically identify the products, and it'll tell you, is it a good deal? Is it a good sale? Is it too overpriced? Is it last year's version? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you'll be that will have that, in a number of different ways. In addition to what Magic Leap does with its games and what HoloLens did with the Minecraft, there's news out there that there's going to be this new Minecraft AR game coming out as well, kind of like a Pokemon Go, I guess, type of experience, but not where you got to catch them all, but where you can use your phone to play with your Minecraft stuff, in AR. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I don't think they're together. I think they will merge, but I think they're starting out, and they're really two distinct different things.
Yeah, and I think this article probably is written largely around a lot of what we've been talking about, and it's probably in violent agreement with us in that while there's a feeling and maybe a desire for us to want to feel like this is generation 2, even to the point where 2 weeks ago, I was actually pushing back on the journalists that were calling this generation 1.5. And I was like, you guys are being very jaded and pedantic as normal. Like, this is generation 2. It's been 3 years, right? Specs are specs, like, but we don't, like, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine.
We're so close to generation 2. So close.
But I think what they're saying is kind of like, just like you mentioned about consoles and PCs, right? The maturity of an evolution of that gaming market, which has taken decades, right? Yeah. It's finally at a point now where when you talk about abstraction layers, what we're really talking about is that a lot of gaming is settling out on x86 at least. When you look at Xbox One and PC gaming, granted, that's because Microsoft kind of owns both of those camps. You're really talking about an abstraction layer, a step up, where everybody is kind of settling down on DirectX. And so all those games are being coded at that level of abstraction and above, where everything beneath it is the same. And I think all they mean is that when you talk about VR and us wanting to see generation two and having an expectation of consolidation, and even in the mobile market, while it's not conjoined with PC gaming necessarily, it's still it's still highly ARM based. There are points of similarity between ARM and x86, and the vast majority of mobile gaming is now abstracted around Unity, and you have content that's being produced both for PC and consoles and mobile that's built on Unity. So you have these areas of technology consolidation, and nexus points. We 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 want to, and maybe we're projecting, and maybe we're assuming and hoping that we would starting to see the same thing in VR, but that's not quite coalescing, right? Rift is its own API, Vive is its own API, Windows Mixed Reality is its own API, and there is other. And I mean, and I'm not very clear on the degree of similarity um, between the two. I haven't, and maybe I don't know that it's out there, but I certainly haven't heard of anybody like Steam or Microsoft or anybody coming up with a VR abstraction layer where there's a piece of middleware that sits in between an x86 PC and any VR headset that does a lot of the calculations for the headset, and that allows everybody to then abstract and code from that point on. So I think that's kind of around where they're talking about, where the field is still pretty wide. There's still kind of new use cases being fielded. There's still new device concepts that are able to enter the market, and we're still probably several generations off. But by the same token, I think the other thing this thing is saying is usually when you have that, you also don't have concurrent explosive growth. Usually when a market is muddling around trying to figure itself out, it caps out at much less than $80 billion, right, of revenue potential. But VR is maybe a little weird, where there's still this high earnings potential for people getting into the market, even though the market still is seeking out some standards and specifications. I mean, that's another good one, right? I don't know of any VR spec, right, from like IEEE or any of the standards bodies, and those would be things that would certainly help mature the industry and move it along. So
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of work done on that. I think the guys over at Unity, the guys over at OpenVR, especially even VR web browsing, there's been a lot of work to build those standards. And I think Steam has been a great way to kind of push that forward. And, Steam now lets you remap your VR controllers. So if a game doesn't support your controller, you could customize the mapping. So Steam's been a great influencer there. But I think I've seen slides from I think it's the XR group and Unity, and how they can develop develop once and then go out to all the different headsets, and it's pretty cool. Again, it's in the early stages. I do know Oculus has been working very hard to make some of what they had, like their avatars, that they were allowing publishers to use in their games, to make them open so that those publishers could then use those same avatars in other games. If they want people to adopt their avatars, you know, then the publishers need to be able to use them more than just in Oculus games. And so I'm very, very happy to see Oculus doing that, where they're trying to make more of what they do, for the publishers, allow those publishers to use those tools and with other headsets. And I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that to me has driven all of the consolidation has been those killer apps, right? So if we go back to Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty 1, I got it for the PC. That was a PC game, okay? That was you weren't going to find that on a console. It went to consoles eventually. But then, I mean, that was huge, and that led to Battlefield getting on the consoles, which was when we get the first, not the first Battlefield. That was not a real Battlefield game, but it wasn't. It was renamed at the last minute. It was called Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, blah blah blah. But it was really a console experience. But since those times, we got these games that have these killer games. They wanted the potential of having all these consoles users, so they made their games on all platforms. And now we see that with the new killer apps like the Fortnites, right? And the PUBGs, where they're allowing you to play, and even I'll throw Rocket League in there, right? They're not only allowing cross-play with consoles, they're allowing cross-play with, and I probably could throw Minecraft in there, with mobile, right? So there are places in the world where people have high-end phones but not high-end consoles, and they wanted to tap that market to get those mobile players in. So it's kind of that play anywhere where you can play on mobile, you can play on a console, you can play on PC, and that's been great. And I think that will come to VR. I mean, at some point, the games will probably support AR and VR, and there'll be a way for the AR glasses to totally become opaque, so it feels like you're in a VR headset, and kind of like if you watch Ready Player One, you see all the different crazy headsets these people are wearing out there. Some are really cool, like Wade's, and some are look like look like Dev Kit ones of Rifts. But I think we'll get there. I think AR has a lot to do because there's a lot. AR is not just gaming; it's so much more. So there's so much utility and so much. I mean, there's some videos on YouTube that show, what the future would be like with AR glasses, and it's just I think there's a lot there. It's almost like the cell phone camera and all the utility that gives us. There's a lot AR can do, totally unrelated to gaming. And I think that's very cool. But I do think eventually they will coalesce, but it'll be a while.
Yeah, and I will admit I have heard about, and I've heard Facebook executives and engineers talk a couple of times about Facebook and Oculus they working with the World Wide Web standards bodies to come up with a web VR HTML web based specification, which I am excited about. I think we may have talked about it once on Band of Gamers back in the day when VR was just in its burgeoning nethers. But that, like, one of the things I would like to do is I would love to be able to put on a headset that I already own and go to a web page and say, like, here's my big thing, right? Like, I'm specking out a PC. I need to, in addition to all the electrical specifications, my biggest problem in the last 2 years of building has been mechanical clearance. And that used to not be an issue. It is today. And I'm like, I need a web-based VR experience where I can go in, pick parts, and literally be able to pull them out into VR and have them be to spec size and be able to put the things together and go, yes, I have enough mechanical clearance for this GPU or this this big Mongo heatsink CPU heatsink and fan assembly, and still be able to fit, like, know whether or not the copper fins for the heatsink and fan hang over the RAM slots, right?
Yep.
As
Yep.
I have sticks of RAM sitting over here now because I bought 4, but I can only stink and populate 2 slots because one of them is blocked by the heatsink and fan. So, yeah, if we can get to that point, and the same thing with people who are into car stuff, I'm sure it would be great. And we talked last week about that HoloLens demo, and that's kind of approaching that, right? Where even though they were miming it because they couldn't really physically interact with the pieces, but that's clearly where it's headed. Is not only for those things to be painted in midair, but then for you to be able to actually physically interact with them, and twirl them around and get a look at a piece or a side or a screw or an attach point.
Hey, while we're talking about China with your 4K headset, it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that, kind of like a lot of people think of the next real Gen 2 headsets. I'm not one of these people, but there's a lot of people out there who think a real Gen 2 headset has to have eye tracking for foveated rendering. So just what you're looking at has to be high res, and kind of the outside area can be lower res because you're not really focused on it, and the fovea of the eye really is that high definition middle of the picture, right? So that was a story that the Vive Pro eye with the eye tracking and foveated rendering uh, is being released in Europe and China for $2,000, not in the U.S. I thought that was interesting. Um, I have absolutely no idea what I'm assuming it's an engineering use case. I don't know.
I don't know, and I'm not entirely clear. When you said eye tracking, the first thing that I thought of was in Project Cars. OG Project Cars. I don't know if they have this in Project Cars too, but in Project Cars, when you and it actually drives me nuts. When you look at a menu item, if you blink your eyes twice, it's like a left mouse click.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So it's the weirdest thing. And there's no documentation or anything that prepares you for this. You're just looking at a thing, and then all of a sudden you see the cursor flash, and then it clicks it, and you're like, "What the heck's going on?" But it's aggravating to me because I'm sure as anybody has watched on a podcast, I suffer from really bad allergies, and whether or not I'm inside the visor in glasses or contacts, I'm probably frequently blinking because my eyes are watering, and I like that blasted thing, which I think I've figured out how to turn it off once. I've never been able to figure it out again. So if that is what people mean by eye tracking, absolutely not. I don't want that. And I use Samsung phones, and Samsung phones have like the creepy like they look at you to see if you're looking at them, and then they keep the screen on. And I always disable that immediately when I get a new. So I don't mind eye. If it sounded partially like what you meant by eye tracking was that they can tell what depth of field you're looking at, so that they can do almost like a bokeh effect, which is kind of how you render video games now, sort of, right? Where in terms of like where you things that are closer in are rendered in higher detail, and things that are further out um, are rendered at less detail. And you can play with sliders often to impact that distance of render quality. So that I might not necessarily mind, and that helps manage CPU resources and GPU resources because you're not drawing things that are way out at a high degree of detail, even though they're on screen. But yeah, I'm personally not interested in anything that intelligently observes your eyes, right, to attempt to tell what you're doing and then provide you some responsive feedback. So
well, I can tell you, I have not had that problem in Project Cars 2. So I think you're safe with Project Cars 2. Um, I guess I haven't tried Project Cars 1 in VR. In any case, yeah. So basically, wherever you look on the screen is where it's going to be higher resolution. Now, the sweet spot on a lot of the Gen 1s, right, you had to look straight ahead because if you look to the left or right, it was blurry, right? And this is something you'll see in Elite Dangerous with your headset, right? You can put on your Windows Mixed Reality or put on your Vive. If you boot up Elite Dangerous and you try to read the writing over on the sides without turning your head, you can't read it because it's very small sweet spot. And so with this, what the eye tracking does is it looks where you're looking and it just makes wherever you're looking the sweet spot, and then renders what you're not looking directly at a lower resolution. So it
yeah.
does save a lot of processing power, they say. I guess the Europeans and Chinese will know because we're not getting it here. To me, it's like I'd rather, and I've said this before. NVIDIA, give me a GPU that gives me twice as many frames per second as the GTX series. I know ray tracing is supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, but I've never had it. What I do want is a card that can be twice as fast as what I have, so I can play, better VR games. Because
Yeah.
the bottleneck today is not ray tracing. Nobody uses ray tracing. The bottleneck is frames per second. You need to crunch out more. And to the VR companies, I would say, and to the VR game makers, let's support dual graphic cards, okay? Let's start supporting SLI so I can actually put two cards in and get super excellent performance out of my VR games.
Yeah.
If
Do you know?
that's the middle of the road, we'll take it, Go ahead.
And that was actually a thing that I was thinking about over the last 2 weeks. Is of course I think we've talked about how I built an SLI rig 3 years ago, and then um, tore it apart because I was buying games and none of them were using SLI. So I took that GPU and put it in a streaming PC. But recently I was like, I wonder if like VR is using SLI and I can go back and get a second card again. But it sounds like
There's,
nobody's coding to use it.
there's a couple of people doing it, but it's not the big players. It's not the
Okay.
Oculus, the Vive, the Steam.
Uh,
I'd love to see them do it. I'd love to see them do it because then I could just pop another 1070 in
right.
and hopefully get double the frames,
Yeah.
But I did one thing, and I wanted to bring this up for you, is that The guys over at Tested, they are great. Jeremy and I want to say Tom. I don't think it's Tom, but they do some great reviews on VR stuff. And I keep telling them, guys, you need your own playlist on Tested because there's all this non-VR stuff on Tested, and I have to really dig for your videos to find them. But anyways, I digress. Jeremy over there, he got the I don't know if he made this or if he found it and shared it, but there's a Thingiverse model that you can 3D print, so you can have attached headphones if you want them. So he basically took a pair of headphones that you can dismantle very easily that you get on Amazon, and then print your own holders so you can have your on headset headphones. So I was thinking of you because you've pre-ordered a Rift S. So you may want to check out that link. And anybody else is watching and pre-ordered a Rift S, you may want to check out that link. Again, it'll be in the show notes and after tomorrow morning. And you can just have a friend 3D print it and then have your headphones right on and not have to worry about the piping of the sound in. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, so shout out to those guys too. By the way, I don't know if you realize, but I finally started paying. Not finally. When I paid attention to the guys that tested, it's because half of the guys that tested are former Maximum PC editors. So
All right.
Will Smith and Norman Chan, who I think Norm actually started at Maximum PC as an intern, and eventually, by the time it was all over, was the hardware editor. So spent many years reading articles from those guys, and of course now they are over at Tested. So yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, good. And I really like what the guys are doing on the VR. I think they call it perceptions, but again, they don't have their own playlist, so it's hard to find what they're doing as opposed to what everybody else on the channel is doing. Um, so did you play any VR this week?
I did not. No,
Okay.
I think as we were talking, I was still playing Final Assault. So I probably played that one or two more times after last week's podcast. And but my next VR block is like about in a week. So next week I'll be putting on the visor again. And I've got like 3 sessions scheduled, all in the bottom of the month to get into something in VR.
Well, we did play Star Trek Bridge Crew tonight. We did not release it on the channel yet because we had some technical difficulties. Basically, I've torn my gaming room apart again. It was like a last minute hook the census up and tell it to recalibrate, and just not doing room scale. But we did Bridge Crew, had a blast. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you know, really enjoying the next generation Enterprise. The tablet that the captain gets, he can just pick up and he can go to different tabs. I actually the ergonomics of that, and then the added gameplay of being able to send different engineers to different parts of the ship to repair stuff. So really started getting into that tonight. So anybody who's interested in Star Trek Bridge Crew, that'll probably go up tomorrow. Around the same time this does, or separated by a couple hours. But it's a game that I don't know that I enjoyed playing it by myself, but it's a game that I really do enjoy playing. A lot of fun, a lot of things you can do with your hands to make funny, do funny things. We were high fiving each other and whatnot. I know you and I've played it before too. But yeah, just a game that keeps on giving. I on this YouTube channel, in the comments section or in the community section, I will post when the games we play go on sale. I know Trickster. If you haven't picked up Trickster, folks, it's only $13. I know Command and Macebite just got a copy. I have like 3 copies. He had to play with the kids, the grandkids. But that's another fun game that we're going to try to work into the rotation. But in any case, yeah, good times in Star Trek. So check that out live from the Oasis. That should be up tomorrow. Before we get into the viewer comments, which we had some good ones from the last show, were there any other topics you wanted to cover there, Aga?
The only thing I'll mention is that while we are not the core topic, I'm still pretty excited for rumblings of things that I'm hearing that may show up at E3 in what are we looking at, about 3 more weeks. So I do think, and as one of the sites that we follow mentioned that they will have a VR showcase this year. So VR will kind of get its due. I don't know that Oculus or Vive will have presence at at E3 this year as they've had the last couple of years. I would think at some point Valve, if they're going to do the Valve Index, would have a presence at E3. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I have not paid as close attention to VR at E3 over the last couple of years. I've just as an by the way, but I'm interested to track the news coverage and engage in that conversation this year.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty excited about E3 as well. Been following it, well, I think, forever. And I would love some new games on the horizon. I mean, I think the one thing I'm most excited about really is No Man's Sky getting VR, because we were playing that game. We had a lot of fun in that game, and to be able to walk around on planets in VR and down in the caves and the bridges of ships. I mean, Elite Dangerous, you can't really walk around. You can change the camera angle, but you can't really walk around today in Elite Dangerous. And it's still amazing to be able to look out on your ship and look through the canopy and the windows and all the it's just awesome. So I'm just can't wait for No Man's Sky to get VR, and I think that's going to be just a phenomenally great game. But yeah, I mean, if we could get I would like an MMORPG in VR. You know what I'm saying? Something like a VR, massive multiplayer version of Skyrim. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would get me excited.
Right. Did you see the No Man's Sky VR trailer? That.
Yes.
It's a little clip that plays on the Valve Index page.
Yep.
Yeah, that got me very excited. I was like, that looks awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun game ever since they added multiplayer. Well, really the co-op they've added apparently it's getting true multiplayer, but the co-op they added is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I mean, they're a small development house and there's things they have to work through, but we had a blast in it. But it just being in VR is just it's one of those games where there's like a billion planets. But you could just spend so much time on one exploring a single planet because the planets are there's all these different life forms and the caves and just it's amazing. It's amazing. But any non VR games you're looking forward to from E3? What would be your um top games? Not it doesn't have to be. I know this is a VR show, but it doesn't have to be VR related.
Yeah, well, I have to re-rack and stack that now because we just got word on Twitter today that the game I look forward to every E3 for the last 2 years, which is Skull and Bones,
Okay.
coming from Ubisoft, has been announced that it won't be shown at E3 this year. Despite the internet's love of hating everything and making stupid comments at other people's expense. My reaction to it is I wonder because being on the software development side, I know that the problem with demos is that takes manpower. You have to divert FTEs to go stub out a part of the code because what that demo is doing is not in a lot of cases diverges from what you're going to actually put in the game. So I'm partially hopeful that them abstaining from showing it at E3 is actually indicative that they may be pushing to try and get it out this year or spring of next year and didn't want to off-track development, by 5 or 6 weeks, trying to put it to pull a team off to put a demo together. Because the argument might be, well, if we're just going to release it, like let's just get it released. Let's not take downtime away to put a demo together. So that's my hope of the reasoning behind that. So I'm not really sure. I'm probably looking forward to seeing what Fallen Order is about, like everybody and their mother is. I'm interested to hear what the Apex season pass is going to bring. Not entirely for my own personal play into it, but just to see how they're going to handle that as a corporation. And I'm probably interested, since I've been playing the Division 2 recently, I'm probably interested to see what they're going to say about the Division 2 and the roadmap for changes and drops of DLC.
Awesome. And anybody watching, if you have things you're looking forward to, coming out at E3, let us know. We'd love to hear what everybody's looking at. One other thing before we go to the reader comments, Battle Wake. I was commenting on their YouTube. I'm like, or it was either YouTube or Reddit, and I was commenting. I'm like, guys, please make it more than 2-player. I get a group of 4 guys who play together on a regular basis. We play Furious Seas, we play, Star Trek Bridge Crew, et cetera, and they confirm back it will be 4-player or more. They don't have a hard number yet, but there was a video. I think it was the guys from Tested. They had said, "Is this going to be 2-player co-op?" And he says, "Oh, those numbers haven't been defined yet." But they did reply to one of my comments saying, yes, we should not be a problem to have 4-player co-op or 4-player PVE, which I'm really happy about. Really happy about. And in any case, that Battle Wake is kind of like a Furious Seas type of game, but um, Furious Seas is more of a single player game where they're adding multiplayer. The single player is a blast. The multiplayer is a blast, but it looks like Battle Wake is a serious multi. It's like the Call of Duty of VR, pirate games.
Right.
And,
I will say one thing that we need IL2 Sturmovik VR.
No, I returned it.
You returned IL2.
Yeah, it was on sale for I think $18. Now everybody's charging sales tax now, state sales tax now. So I think it was $18, but I had to return it because not that the VR was bad. I just thought I thought the game wasn't user friendly. Like on the Xbox, it's wicked user friendly. It's a pick up and play game. But yeah, if you want it, it supports VR. It's and non VR. It's like Project Cars 2 and Star Trek Bridge Crew but yeah, you can pick it up. I just didn't as a new user. Like they have co-op, but there's no co-op missions. It's like you can build your own. You can build your own co-op. Well, I don't know how. I just want to jump on with my friends and play. But yeah, you can pick it up and it does support VR right on Steam.
IL2 Sturmovik?
Yeah.
All right.
Tell me if I'm wrong. We'll talk about it.
No. Yeah, so Battle of Stalingrad does look like it supports VR. Yeah. That's weird. I did not know that was the plan for that.
Yeah, now, so IL2 BOS, right? Which has I don't know. I know on the Xbox, I think it was there's so many IL2s, I can't keep up with them.
No, right. Yeah, that's it's been a very long running series. I'm trying to look at the. Yeah, no, it was done by One Chuck Game Studios, so it's still the same developer. I was seeing if maybe it had been handed around. It's got a 74 on Metacritic, so it's not as good as previous iterations of the series. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm interested in it because to me it's always been a hardcore simulation. And if they brought it to Xbox, I'm sure it was softened in terms of its level of complexity of the PC version. But yeah, so I'm wondering if we got the old console first design modality on this, and if that's
I think it's totally a PC design, but it sounds like
really?
Flight Sim. I've been playing Flight Sim. Gee whiz, going back to 1990, I've been playing Flight Sim, Microsoft Flight Sim, and it's not. I think the last one was 10 I bought, but in any case, I played a lot of World War II. Here's the thing: like if you were playing Project Cars 2, right? And you're on the line, getting ready to race, right?
Yep.
And you had to. Here's the first thing you would have to do: you'd have to start your car,
right?
And then you would have to adjust all the pressures, like the oil pressure. You have to adjust all those pressures, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to release the brake. Okay.
Yep.
And then as you're driving, you have to manually control the air coming into your radiator because you don't want the coolant to be too cool because your car would stall. If it's too hot, your car will. That like I took off and my plane overheated. There was like every time I took off. So it's
so it's a lot of busy work.
Nothing was mapped. Like nothing was mapped on my HOTOS. Like when I play Elite Dangerous, everything's mapped. You may want to change it, But it's like, oh, you get a hotel, great. Map everything yourself. It's
You
like,
know, yeah, I do think I
not for
remember
me.
that from the original IL2 server. Like, yeah, you go to open that thing up and like none of the controls are mapped to anything. Yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll look at it. I don't know. I guess I guess when I said IL2 Sturmovik VR, I was thinking of a purpose-built VR game. It looks like this is a game that was built as a stock PC game, but has VR mode compatibility. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
something like Eve Valkyrie
right,
for World War II. That would be perfect because that,
right.
I mean, they just shoot you out and you start flying and shooting. It's great. Hey, did you see that link I sent you on that Space VR? That's it was a VR game where you touch everything.
I did.
Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah.
try to dig that up and put that in the show notes too because
Okay.
it's just a tech demo, but you literally it's like think you're in a cockpit. You literally touch everything with you turn everything on and off with
Right.
your hands. Very cool.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
So
let me go ahead.
yeah. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to hit the viewer comments. I want to say hey to Andrew. Andrew's commented never used a VR before, but pre-ordered the Index as soon as it came out, and he's sure it's going to be awesome. He wanted to go top of the line, skip Gen 1, went right to Gen 1.5. And thank you for leaving your comment, Andrew. Appreciate it. And then Joe Tokutora, I hope I said that right. He was really like interested in sharing how he felt about the Index. He's like, essentially, what you can expect is to have the clarity of the Pimax 5K. Um, however, the quality is going to be better. You're not going to have as wide a field of view, but Valve, is expected to have better quality in the same field of view because of their dual lens design and just some of the things they're doing much better than the Pimax 5K guys do. So you can see those comments on last week's show. I appreciate both Andrew and Joe Tokutora. I don't know if I said that right, for leaving your comments. And we kind of went back and forth, but that's a summary of what we've talked about. And I invite everybody watching to leave your comments as well. And with that, that's all I had for tonight. How about you, Aga?
Nope. That's it.
All right, my friends. Well, thank you very much. Now you can find uh, Gaskacles over at the Rounding Off Infinity YouTube channel. And of course, you can find me Wednesday nights before this talk show with Aga, doing live from the Oasis where we play co-op. I think it's the only weekly live stream with people with a group of guys playing co-op VR games. So I can't find anybody else doing it. So please tune in and check it out. We love to talk to people while we're playing. And with that, we'll call it a night. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you back here next week. And until next time, peace.